Hey, how you doing? Pastor Greg Hintz from the Place Church here, and I just want to pick up right where we left off yesterday, and that was Luke chapter 12, and I want to start in verse 23. This is the words of Jesus, and I want you to listen to what Jesus said. He said, "For life is more than food, and the body is more than clothing. Consider the ravens. They neither sow nor reap. They have neither storehouse nor barn, and yet God feeds them. Of how much more value are you than the birds? And which of you, by being anxious, can add a single hour to his span of life? If then you are not able to do a small thing as that, why are you anxious about the rest?" You know, yesterday we talked about anxiety, but I love what Jesus says here. He says, look at the birds. I mean, he's using a real example that people see. Even right now, you hear the birds. You hear the birds where I'm at. They make all kinds of noise. Sometimes they're so noisy that I can't even record anything. But, you know, they're singing. And they're alive and well. And I haven't fed the birds. I don't feed them. I don't look after them. In fact, sometimes I wish they'd just go away. But they don't. They stick around. And God continues to care for them. When I look at them, as I'm not stepping out of my comfort zone to care for them, but God is taking care of them, how much more is God going to take care of me? My responsibility on this earth is to trust him, to be reminded with that I see around me. If God is going to care for the birds, why isn't God going to care for me? If he's going to take care of their needs, why isn't he going to take care of mine? And so I redirect from the worry, the stress, the anxiety, and I say, instead of stressing out about these things, I'm just going to trust God in the midst of it. It's kind of our theme this week, isn't it? Trusting God. It's one of the most important things that you can do, and I got to be honest with you, it's also one of the most difficult. And it's so difficult because everywhere, everyone oftentimes wants us not to trust God, wants us to fix it ourselves, wants us to stress out about it, wants us to worry, wants us to be anxious. Why? Oftentimes because they're anxious, because they're worried. But if you're a believer, if you put your faith and hope and trust in Jesus, you're living on a different plane. You're trusting in a different source. And the God who's feeding the birds all around you today is going to take care of your needs too. Your responsibility is not to figure it out. Your responsibility is to surrender it, to trust him, to give it over to God, and to let God be God in your life. What is that thing that you're anxious about today? Will you surrender it at the feet of Jesus? Will you give it over to him? Will you allow him to be part of that thing in your life? I hope so. I hope today's that day. And I hope today is great. Have a wonderful day.